Steve Weston said he may not be able to join us, and Ted Swift said he may not be able to join us. So Ernie or Ted Blank, are you going to record this tonight?
I couldn't quite understand that, Tony.
The question was, for you, we record a session tonight?
Yeah, I'm afraid your audio is dropping out. I can't understand you.
The question was, would you or Ernie record the session tonight?
Oh, yes, I'm already recording it.
Okay. And somebody's got their mic on, and it was maybe working on top of me. Okay, so I think all the mics are off. I see that we have 8 of 10 on the call, which is what I expected. So I'm not sure what that noise is. That's not me. Jerry Bardecker, is that you?
I'm here.
Okay, that might be you with a little background noise. So maybe you could turn your mic off while you're not speaking. Okay, so I've got 3 items on our agenda tonight. One is to demonstrate a multi-chord analysis in Occult 4 so that it generates an OBS file, and then how we analyze that. Then after that, we'll do a discussion of the file naming issues that we've raised in the various email messages. And then after that, we could have a discussion of the files that should be transmitted with reports. If Steve isn't here tonight, we might postpone that till next week or maybe after the first of the year or something, depending on schedules. So, any comments or questions before we get started? Okay, so I'm sharing my screen. So I'm going to start first by opening the macro. I'm going to leave Skype up. So I put a shortcut to the macro on my desktop. And so I can just open that. I could double click it or open it, either way. And Excel should open up here in a second. Come on, Excel. Oh, here we go. Okay, and so last week, Steve showed a single chord demonstration. Tonight I'll do a multi-chord demonstration. So we're going to do the same thing that Steve did. We're going to press this Load Files button. Come on. What's that? I don't want that. I'm not sure what that is. please bear with me here. My machine is not working exactly like I'm expecting it to work. Of course, I haven't tried doing this with Skype in the background, so that could be an issue.
Tony, do you suppose it's an issue with something about macros? I remember that there was when I was doing this, there would be a yellow bar that come up and said that I had to, I think it was do something with macros and enable macros or something, and then it would work.
I've been using it today. Everything's working just fine. It's just that I don't know. I'll kill it. So it worked fine. I did it 2 or 3 times today already with the same macro. Everything worked, but I didn't have Skype running. So
looks like you've got 2 copies of Skype running.
May have. Let's kill that one. Come on. Boy, I can't even kill this. Wow. Let's go here. Okay, that killed it. Excel, yes, that's running. Okay. Ugh. Well, let's try this again. So that's why I didn't double click. I didn't want to have 2 versions running. Okay. So we'll try this again. Load files. There we go. Now the button works. Okay, so even though the macro is in a different folder, I'm using a shortcut to access it. All I have to do is go to where my data files are. So this is, I'll show you, it's a folder for 595 Polyzena that Ted Blank and I worked on recently. So I've got all the reports in a data file. So there's 4 chords, so that you can see a 4-chord workup here. So all I have to do then is highlight all 4 chords and press the load button. Now, you should have heard the noise, and that's an error noise, and an error message comes up, and it says there's an invalid batch that mixes dates, asteroids, or stars. And the first file handled is the one that the macro tries to match. And the first date is 12/4/2017, 2018. The first asteroid is 595, and the first star is 678-045414, but this file doesn't have the 0 in it. So these are the things that you guys handle by reviewing, and often we'll catch these. I'm just showing you that if you don't catch them, the macro often will. So I'm going to press OK, and I'll go to the field on the file that it's highlighted, and I'll put the 0 in. And press Enter. And then I'll save that. I got a little mess on my machine that there's some continuity in cell shading. It's not a big deal. So I'll continue. Now I'll go back to the macro, and I'm going to load the offending file, which was this Mealy file. And then I get the nice little ding that says, aha, I loaded it. So now, if it worked the way I think it will work, everything should be loaded. I'll reduce these down so they're not in the way. And the next step then is to go to Occult. So I'll open Occult. And we're going to, under asteroid observations, we're going to add, edit, and observe occultation. And we get this screen that comes up, and we're going to open the OBS file that we just created. And here it is, Polyzena. It's in the data files folder, and it's got the right number with the 045414 on there. And I'll open that. So there's only 3. It did include the mailing one, but it must have stopped before it got to the last one. So I'll have to add that last one. So I'll exit this briefly. I'll go back to the macro. I'll go to load files, and now I'll go get the Dunham file and load that one. And that one gave me the all clear message. So I'm doing this as I would do it myself, so that you can see some of the issues that pop up. So now I'll go back to my OBS file. I'll open it. I should have the Dunham file in there now. And sure enough, I got 4 chords. So the next thing that I would do, because I get excited and I want to go see what the profile looks like right away, is I would plot the event. And I'm not seeing all the chords, so I'm going to reduce the scale, and that looks really crazy. And I've reached this point so many times, and each time I always forget, well, why is it that these things aren't lining up right? So the answer is fairly simple. I'll exit this, and it's because we didn't get the details. And Steve mentioned this, but he went through it fairly quick. But if you press this Get Details button, then it loads some details about the stars, and you kill these screens back out because we don't need them. and then we press plot event, by golly, then it looks pretty normal. So, right now it's giving us a circular asteroid, which is the size that comes from the file, from the details. It's 105 kilometers in diameter. So a simple report would be, we take these chords with a circular diameter, which is what Steve did, and then we would press this little button here, find best fit, and it's going to try to locate that circular diameter to where it best fits these data points. And then that would identify this point as the center of the asteroid, and then that is what would be reported astrometrically when Occult reports to the Minor Planet Center. So you could be done at this point with the analysis, but you can also, if this check mark is here is circular, it's always going to be circular. And you can solve for a circular one to see if there's a different size that better fits. And you do that by continuing to press this best fit button. But you see that it doesn't converge. In fact, that the circular model doesn't work very well. So I'll move this back down someplace in the middle here. I uncheck the circular box, and now I can do an ellipse of best fit. So I check these three boxes, which is the major axis, the minor axis, and the orientation of the two axes. And I'm going to pause right now and just ask if somebody can verify that you're hearing everything I'm saying.
Yes.
I'm hearing you just fine.
So am I.
Yep, sounds good here.
Okay. So now we have the opportunity to solve for an ellipse of best fit, and we press this button multiple times. And what this does is it kind of does a random walk of different sizes of the ellipse axes and orientations until it finds one that fits. And you'll see that sometimes when the fit is not perfect, it will get to a point where it'll bop back and forth like it is here. So that's as good as we can do. But notice that the center of the ellipse is in a different place than the center of the circle was before. And so that's actually a better solution than the circle was. And now the size is 119.5 by 64.3, plus or minus 6.1 kilometers. So we could end the analysis there. However, Polyzena is a asteroid that has a ISAM model. So we'll go back to the other form. Let me go back. There's two forms in this system, in the occult system, the plot form and the data form. So if I go back to the data form and I click the light curve and shapes menu item, and I say display Dammit and ISAM shape models. Now, how did I know that it had a Dammit or ISAM model? Well, it says it right there on the data form. So right here it says asteroid. When we got the details, it went out and looked, and it says, oh yeah, there's models available for this asteroid. So now it's querying the ISAM and Dammit databases, and now it's loaded. This is another window that pops up. It's the Dammit and ISAM shape models window. It tells you which models are loaded. There's Dammit line here and ISAM line here, and so there's two models loaded. It says yes and yes for ISAM. These two did not load for Dammit. Now I can toggle between the two models. That's model 2 or model 1. And this is the beauty of our multi-chord analysis, is we can rapidly see that model 1 is a much better fit to our data than model 2. So that's how you do that. So I'm going to stick now with model 1, and we can graphically now we can manipulate this model a little bit. If I grab the slider here, I can slide our chords down, and I typically try to line the center of the ellipse up with the centroid of the model, pretty close. And then you see that our ellipse chords are too big for this model graphically, so I can, if I just press either side of this plot scale, I can get it to shrink or enlarge. And I'm going to shrink it until it's about the size of the graphical model. And then I can slide it around a little bit so that it lines up a little bit better with the model. Something like that. So that could be the end of our analysis. We're going to leave these types of decisions to John. This is in his bailiwick, but it's something that any of us can do. It's kind of fun. It gives us instant feedback on our observations. And Jerry Bardecker, I know, has been on his reports that when he does these multi-chords, he's been sending this plot file back to the observers so they can get feedback on how their observation went. So we could quit here. We could play around with it a little bit, but I want to show you the next level of analysis that we can do. So I'll go back to the ISAM window, and there's a menu item called With Phase Models. Click that, and you can download multiple versions of the model at different rotational steps. So I'm going to load the phase models at 8-degree steps. And so what this does is it says, well, maybe the rotation phase of this model isn't quite right. And if we just look at it in a little different rotation orientation, we might be able to come up with a better fit. So now you can begin to see that the asteroid is rotating. So this is the midpoint of the model that is supposed to be the exact time of our event based on our timing. But I'm going to show you, there's a menu item that says show shape model controls on plot under plot options. So I'm going to click that on. Then I get this little box, and in this box then I can change the rotation in 8-degree increments. So if 4 is the standard where we start, then we're going to need to have some criteria by which to judge, well, what is a better model fit. Criteria, and one that I proposed to Dave Harold, is that we count up the D and R data points that match the edge of the model within the plus or minus error bars. So at this point we have like, and I can change this around just a little bit here so it matches a little bit better. So now I've got 2 matching that edge and this edge within the error bars. Chord 4 matches, chord 1, chord 3 doesn't match on reappearance, but chord 4 does. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 8 that match with this aspect. So I can go to the 8-degree and change that a little bit. And now, with the 8-degree one, I get chord 3 here to match on both edges within the error bars. And so now I have 7 out of 8 that match. I did some pre-processing. That's about the best I can do with this particular shape model. But you see that, you know, for some events, we actually get very perfect matches, but this one is a little bit off. And this is what the shape model people like to get back from us, is the real data that fits their models, and then they can play with their models and improve them. So, let's see, let me look through my outline here. Okay, so I've covered everything that I wanted to cover. Are there any questions, comments?
Yeah, this is Ted. Are those error bars the 95% confidence error bars?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Hey, Tony, thank you. This is John. You've actually taken me deeper into this than I was originally instructed. So I have learned how to refine this quite a bit. I was just stopping with the ellipse model and saving it and posting it on the web, but this obviously is a much more refined view. So I really appreciate the detail in this presentation. Learn something every day.
Yeah, and you know, like I said in the emails, I've been learning stuff from you guys too. So it's a two-way street. This is the type of thing that we've been doing in our data analysis group since we started. We share different techniques like with PyOte and ROte, And now that we've expanded our scope a little bit now with the OBS file stuff, so.
Well, tell me, does Dave expect to get, because I have yet to send my first package up, but I've got about 5 queued up, ready to go, just OBS files. But does he get this kind of information also or not from us?
He used to from Brad Timerson, yes.
Okay. Okay.
So we used to do it to this level of detail. Now I know that Steve Preston was reluctant to ask you to do it to this level of detail because it adds an extra workload. But, you know, it's an option.
Yeah.
I know that Dave Harold just announced that he's about ready to release a new version of Occult, and not only then will we be able to analyze this particular event with an ISAM model, but when we get an ISAM model that fits this particular event, we can then also check the same model against any other events in the database for the same asteroid, and they all should match or not match. And then the idea is that you can come up with a solution that best fits all observations. Now, I think Dave is going to have a team in each region, like North America, Europe, Japan, Australia, do these analyses, because I think it's going to be a little more technical, but I'm not sure yet. We'll wait and see. Frankly, I think the more of us that know how to do this, the better, because you can spread the workload. It's more people having fun doing it, and we all learn more by doing it, I think. Any other questions?
Well, one other from here. Do you have under plot options, because I haven't looked at this closely, do you have a color shaded? You know, we've posted, or that Brad used to post kind of like shaded colored options. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's under plot options, and then plot on black background screen only.
Okay, yeah, that looks more like what I expected. And then he would take a GIF or GIF, however you pronounce it, and that's what was normally getting posted. Okay, thank you.
And he would also select that option to show plot lines in color.
Yeah, right here I can show star paths in color.
Yeah.
Now, you notice this little circular gizmo here, that shows the direction of rotation, and this is the rotational axis. Now that comes from this other menu, and I can say with model image, include rotational axis or not. And so if I don't like that on my final product, I just unclick that. And I go back to here. Well, it's still there, but if you unclick that, it should go away. Let me see if I can, so if I click here, I'll probably have to reload it, but we can make this part go away too so that the image is clearer. So that's the value of having these ISAM models. Dave Harold also published a message that explained that the new Gaia satellite recorded hundreds of different light curves for all the millions of stars that it observed, and for the asteroids that it observed. And they're thinking that they're going to be able to develop thousands of more shape models from the Gaia data. And if that's the case, then instead of having a few hundred models like we currently do, we'll have a few thousand models. So this level of analysis will become more common as we get more data to work with. Any other questions? All right, well then, John, I'm going to relinquish my screen here, and I'm going to turn it over to you for our discussion on the file naming issues that came up in the email messages today.
Okay, thank you. I'll be real brief. The reason this came up is I have, Jerry brought it up today in just an email exchange, and I've had other people ask, and in fact, Steve and I talked about this when I first started doing the analysis role about what is, because and it all gets started because we have conflicting instructions depending on where you go and what you read. My take is right now, and I haven't talked to Steve about this, and I want to get his agreement on anything that we propose or accept, but I like the way the spreadsheet just automatically generates the file. I mean, the file name, it's 90%, if not 100% of what we need. And I think changing some instructions on the web, having the file name format on the web changes is an easy, like a 1 minute change. And I don't know that, is it Hristo or who manages the spreadsheet, Tony?
Okay, so Hristo manages Occult Watcher, and so he's responsible for the name that Occult Watcher puts onto the Excel spreadsheet report.
Okay, well,
but the file name that he's currently putting out is one that Steve Preston recently asked him to do. It didn't used to do it this way.
Okay.
It used to put the name out with the date, the asteroid name, the asteroid number, the asteroid name, and the star ID number, and then the observer name. That's the way it used to do it. And now Steve asked him to change it, and so it's the date, the asteroid number, the observer name, and positive, negative, I think. Whatever it was we put in that message.
Okay, well, and I think that's fine, and I think that's obviously what we're probably going to stick with. But it's just, there's been some confusion, and I'm not sure everybody is using the current version of the spreadsheet, or they maybe submit their data in a different way. Yeah, I mean, as the analysis group, you'll see a lot of different naming formats coming at us, but you know, I think the message ought to be consistent is all I'm saying is, and I like the way the spreadsheet's doing it. So, and if that's what Steve wants, then that's end of discussion.
Yeah, so then if we do that, then there is the issue that Jerry raised about the instructions on the spreadsheet telling them to use a different name. And I can change that and send you a new spreadsheet if that's what you want.
John, Tony,
Yes.
when we're converting all the event reports into the single OBS file, doesn't that macro look for like the exact same star name and such? So
Yeah.
if you guys are getting reports in different file naming formats, do you have to go in and manually correct those before you run the OBS, the single OBS load, run the macro?
Okay, so the macro doesn't look at the file name.
Okay,
It looks at the data that's in the
within it.
spreadsheet.
Okay. Okay, and then that data within the spreadsheet's generated by,
A coat watcher.
okay, gotcha.
For the most part. Now, some people fill out their own forms. So like the one that I showed you, Paul Maley, he does his manually. And that's why his star number didn't have that 0 in it. So you will run into some forms that have star ID numbers wrong, or the dates are wrong, or because the observers do them manually and they make errors.
Okay, that's where it was.
That's
But
correct.
the macro picks that up.
And I've had a very high percentage where the star number, because either the presence or lack of leading zeros, I've had it shift everything to the right, where if it's like UCAC4 format, which is 3x6, I've had it shift where there might only be one digit in the first 3, and then it smashes everything together in the last 6 and things like that. So you really have to, I mean, that's, you know, absolutely you have to look at that, because I've had, I don't know, I've done maybe a dozen of these, and I've probably 80 to 90% of them I've had to make some kind of an edit in that field. So that's just a heads up.
Yeah, John, I think that error was a programming error in Haristo's part, and I think he's fixed that. So you shouldn't see that particular error again, but you will see mismatched star ID numbers. That will continue.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So I guess my question is for you, John, and then also for everybody in the group. But first for you, John, do you want me to go in the Excel file, the Excel instructions, and redo that, and then send you the new form that we would send to Haristo, that would then get put into the Cult Watcher with the name change that you are discussing?
Tony, I would say let's just run it by Steve if he's okay with that. That sounds like a logical thing to do to me, but I'm the newest member of this team. I don't want to be making decisions on my own. So let's just get a consensus, and then so anyway, I'm sorry I'm rambling. I'll give you a qualified yes on that.
Okay, what I'll do is I'll draft up a change, and then I'll send it to you and Steve, and ask for your agreement, and then if everybody's in agreement, we'll send it to Haristo for the change.
That sounds good.
Okay, then now for the rest of the group, like Jerry Hardecker, we've come up with a number of different issues. Are there any other areas that you've seen where we're telling people to name the files differently than we now want them to name it, and do we have to go fix those place?
Tony, I don't have any objection to any way it's done. John's has to deal with the files. My only point was that there was some inconsistency in the way we were presenting it to the observers. And I think we ought to be on the same page as John pointed out, that's all.
Right, so in order to do that, we have to find all those places that were inconsistent and fix them.
Right.
So one of them's in the spreadsheet form itself, and we'll fix that. And I suppose while we're at it, if there's anything else on those instructions that anybody sees that don't make sense or you want changed, send me a message and tell me what you think needs to be changed on those instructions.
Okay, and Tony, isn't the spreadsheet also available on the IOTA website for download for people who want to fill it out themselves?
Yes. So we'll have to post it there as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, in addition to sending it to John, we should post it there so that anybody, and then probably send out a message to the Yahoo group saying, if you're doing your own spreadsheet, please go get a new template from the website.
So that would occur after I send the form and Steve, and we get concurrence on the revised form. Then we would go and send it to Risto and post it on the website and all that stuff. But what I'm saying is, if I'm going to modify part of the instructions while I'm at it, let's fix everything. If you see anything else in the instructions that is broken, doesn't work, you don't like it, could be said better, send those comments to me, because while I'm going through it, I might as well fix everything.
Absolutely.
Which instructions?
What's the deadline for that, Tony?
What do you want for a deadline?
Well, nothing gets done without a deadline.
Basic question, Tony, which instructions are you referring to?
Okay, let me share the screen again. And we'll pull up, let's see here. Well, let's see here. Oh, I can't open, okay, that makes sense. So let's go to this one. Okay, so here's the basic report, and down here are tabs. We're on the data tab, but if I click on the directions tab, there's a whole bunch of directions. And it's in here that we tell the people where the file name should be.
Okay, good. For being the novice person on this team, the first time I opened that report form, it was totally daunting. So I have a lot of updates and notes that I made over the past several months that I'd be more than happy to share with you.
Okay, so here's the file format that we're currently telling people to use. Year, month, day, MP name, MP number, star cat, star name, your last name, and it doesn't say positive or negative. So we would have to revise this. And somebody asked, I think it was Jerry Bardecker, asked, well, why did we have a different file name in here than what we're currently using? And the reason is that this is what Brad wanted. This was Brad's format. This is what he preferred. This is the way he wanted everything. And then Brad passed away and Steve Preston took over, and Steve came in and said, oh, these file names are way too long, and besides, I can't sort on them properly. And so he wanted a different format, and that's the format that we have today. So we can use these file names. John, I think, you're going to be the one that's maintaining the database. And so the file name should contain what you want in the file name to be able to sort it in your database. So if you like the way that Excel or the Occult Watcher is doing it now, then we'll just change this part here. And then Roxanne, if you send me your other comments, I can incorporate that into these directions. And you are correct, it's all daunting. And those of us that have been doing it for years kind of take it for granted, but I know new people coming in, it's like, what?
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, that's why early on I suggested that to Steve that you get involved because you were new coming in and you have a perspective that's very helpful to fixing these things. So, yeah.
Tony, this is Ted. One question. Does the new file name include a number in case you have done a couple of mobile sites and you have more than one observation to report for the same event?
You would have to, no, it doesn't. You would have to say like blank 1, blank 2, blank 3, or something like that. So like David Dunham, when he does his reports, he has multiples often, and he'll give me the same file name, and then he'll put Dunham 1, Dunham 2, Dunham 3 on it.
Okay. Well, if you want us to have numbers in there and you want them in, and we want them to be in some sort of standardized form, I might make the suggestion that we add _1 to every one of these file names generated by Occult Watcher, so that I know where to put the 2 and the 3 and the 4.
Okay. John, we'll have to take that up with Steve.
Right. Okay.
So if you could make note of that and make sure that we bring that up with Steve. Does it have to be an underscore, Ted, or can it just, see the way David's doing it is he just writes his name and then he puts a 1, 2, or whatever afterwards?
Well, I would suggest an underscore because there's an underscore between each other field in that name.
Okay.
The 1 is not part of my name, it's the observation number.
Okay. All right. Anything else on the file names or on the form while I've got it up? While I'm here, so there are other tabs. There's an introduction that I think Brad wrote all of this. So if anybody sees anything in the introduction that we need to change, we could change that. We got the data form, got the directions. So there are some tables. These are, the tables tab are all the lookup tables that we use. They should be locked. There are lists, which are also lookup lists for the drop-down menus that we use. That should be locked.
Tony,
Yes.
how often do we kind of, like, going back to the list and just looking at that, like, how often do we update the cameras per se? I mean, a lot of us now are using the QHYs and they're not out there. And such. And I'm wondering, like, how often have we updated it? I mean, I noticed on some of the directions we talk about stopwatches. I mean, I think it's great that we have people with the skills that can do that, but moving us into, the 21st century, can we maybe appeal also to the next generation of IOTA and maybe update those lists a little bit with more current devices?
So Roxanne, a lot of what you just said clipped out on me, so I didn't hear everything. But I think you're mentioning that we could update like the list of cameras.
Yeah.
And we've had a request to add the QHY cameras, and we can do that. I've just been doing it as requested by Brad, so I'll put on, you want a revision on the form to add a camera or something, I can do that. You just let me know. So we've got the lists, and then I wanted to point out the correction tables are this is where all of the camera delay corrections are done. You can see that there's a set of camera delay corrections for each camera. The nice thing with the QHY is it doesn't need any corrections. But all of the different cameras that we use are in here with their own corrections, and these are all lookup tables. And then the non-integrating cameras don't require some corrections.
Would a person submitting a report today with a QHY camera be able to use this form successfully?
Yes, but they have to enter the QHY manually. They have to let me go to the data. So they would come down here, and for the camera, they would say other, list and comments, and for the exposure, I think they would say none. Then the error bars go away, or the error things go away. So then it says enter times manually in corrected fields, and you put your times down here, and it would work. And there would be no corrections applied. So whatever you put in these gray boxes would go into the green boxes. The way the form works is that the green boxes are protected cells. Whatever you put in the gray box here, the manually corrected disappearance, well, it says manually corrected because I said manual. So let's go to PIOT. So now it says, yeah. So if you put a number in here, nothing happens in the green cells because the camera is not supported. So it has to be a camera that it will use. And then the exposure has to match. But it'll help you through that because it gives you little error messages if things don't work out.
Tony or Ted or anybody, do we have how to fill out this form out on our YouTube channel?
Yes, there's a video that Brad did on YouTube, and it's also a link is posted on the I think the North American page.
Yeah, because I think it would be really helpful out on our IOTA website to like point to where those instructions are, because I know I still cannot fill out this form correctly for my run cam.
So maybe we could put a link to the website in the form.
Okay, we'll think about it. Sounds good.
Yeah, so, John, we would have to make sure that wherever that YouTube is, that it stays there. If we put that link in the form, then they could go find that video very easily in the directions.
Right, and just as an aside, you remember I went through this, I believe it was the Pluto analysis with the QHY, and I did find the combination of fields and what they had to be to get it to work, but I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I'd have to go pull up my spreadsheet. But there is but it's not at all intuitive. So
Yeah. Okay. I mean, in the essence of time, I don't want to dwell on this, but we can move on and come back to this on another day.
yeah.
Yeah, we're getting along in time. So yes, so this whole form is something that we could maybe spend more time on as a team, but I think on this we've got plenty of time. There's no time limit. The issue about the file names is more critical because John's getting files in all the time, and that way he won't have to rename every file as they come in if they're not named the way he wants them. So we'll try to get that file name thing worked out fairly quickly. The issue on the form itself, send me any comments you have, and we'll work through those a little bit at a time. The only caveat I would tell you is that I want to do all the changes in one big clatter because when we're done, we have to send the form to Hristo, and then he has to put it into an update where it's downloaded to everybody who has a Cult Watcher. And he doesn't like to do that every other day. So we need to be organized about our changes and put everything in that we want all at the same time. And then Hristo gets the form, and then he does his update, and he doesn't have to do it multiple times. All right. And then the last topic we had for tonight was the discussion of the files that are transmitted with the reports. And Steve isn't here, so he was going to take the lead on that. Maybe we could put that off. What's the consensus about doing another session next week?
I have no life, so I'm available.
Yeah, but do you want to do a session next week? I can do it next week.
This is Jerry. I can do it too.
And I can do it. This is Ted.
I can do it too.
This is Ernie, I can do it.
I'm not aware of any conflict I have right now.
Okay, so then let's table the discussion about files that are transmitted with the reports for next week, and then also by next week I might have more comments back from people on the form changes, and I could be discussing some of that with everybody. And we may have feedback from Steve on the file name change too, by adding the number to the end, the site number to the end. So, just one comment, Ted, if we want to add the underscore with the site number at the end, that's something also that Christo has to do for us. So we'll be careful about asking him to do too many changes. So we may put that off for a little while.
We can put it off. You can always change the name of the file that Christo creates. And in fact, if you do multiple sites, you have to change the file name. At least we could put out instructions on how to change the file name if you have more than one site.
I think you might also want to think, if you were going to involve Christo in this conversation, there was the suggestion that was made that instead of putting 1, 2, 3 determined arbitrarily, that you used the cord number that was assigned by a cult watcher as the appended number, because then it would be kind of universal.
That sounds good, but sometimes people will add cords after the event, and where they had time to put in an extra site, so they went and put in an extra site, then they go back and add the cord, and now the numbering scheme might change, or somebody will delete one, and that happens kind of in real time after the event. So if somebody grabs a number, that number might not be permanent.
Right, I'm just trying to figure out how a cult watcher would figure out what number to use.
Yeah, a cult watcher would have to put 1 in as the standard number, and then if the observer had more than one station, they would have to change the numbers. Because a cult watcher doesn't know anything about the OBS report. It doesn't exist yet. The reports are coming out before the OBS is done. So the reports are already going to have a file name on them by a cult watcher. So we'll talk with Steve about this, okay, John, and we'll see. It is an issue, but it's something that we could keep a cult watcher the way it is, and then just let the user append the underscore number to it.
Right.
We'll talk about that. So next week we'll have an update on where we are with that discussion. All right. Well, we're 5 minutes past what normally I set as our deadlines, but we had a pretty good discussion.
Thank you, Tony.
Comment if anybody has any other subjects that they would have that might come up at our next meeting, our next session, send those to me as well. So next time we will discuss the status of the file naming. We'll discuss any changes to the report form that might have been agreed to or suggested by them, and we're going to discuss which files get transmitted with the reports.
Hey, Tony,
Yeah?
at some point, can we address this issue of PIOT results variability that I have mentioned before?
Okay, I'll put that down. Yeah, Jerry, it's something that we actually discussed in our data analysis group a long time ago, and so I'll revisit that. I've just got to revisit that.
Okay, I'm was going to prepare just a simple little one example that I've got that it seems to be out of whack to me that I just don't understand what to do with. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, we found that between different analysts, we might do it slightly differently. We might click here and there a little differently. And the way Pyote works, it doesn't quite standardize things the way that RRoute does. And so with RRoute, 2 analysts, if you do the same analysis, you should get exactly the same results. With Pyote, you can get the same results, but you don't necessarily have to, because you might select slightly different points than someone else did in picking your light curve. So it's a little different with Pyote. Okay, so yeah, I'll add that to my list of topics for next week. Great. Well, thanks everybody. We'll see you next week.
All right, thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good
Good night.
night.
Thank you.